Hello, this is Shannon with Dogwood Crochet, and today I'm going to show you how to crochet this Sherpa pumpkin pillow. So these pillows are super modern and simple and just beautiful, and they work up really quickly and easily. So to get started, the materials you're going to need are a 12mm crochet hook, 1 skein of Sherpa yarn. So I'm using Lion brand Gopher Fleece Sherpa yarn, and this is the color Clay, and it's 89 yards, and we're going to use almost the entire skein of yarn. And then we're also going to need some scrap yarn. So I'm going to use Lion brand Wool Ease Thick and Quick, and this is the color Barley, and we only need about 10 yards of this. And then we'll also need a yarn needle and a paper towel. So this strip is just 6 inches by 11 inches. This will be used for this stem later. And then of course we will also need some polyfill stuffing to stuff our pumpkin pillows with. So to start out, we're going to make a slip knot and chain 17. So yarn over and pull through to chain. 3, 4, 5. Okay, so this is 17. Now what we're going to do is we're going to place 1 half double crochet in the 3rd chain from the hook. So when we're working with this Sherpa yarn, it's basically impossible to see our stitches or our chains. So it's going to be really important to feel the stitches or the chains with our fingers. So you can kind of place your finger through there and find it that way. So we're going to find the 3rd chain from the hook, and we're going to place 1 half double crochet. So here's 1, 2, 3. Here's our 3rd chain right here. We're going to half double crochet in there. So yarn over, insert our hook, yarn over, pull up a loop, 3 loops on the hook, yarn over, pull through all 3 loops. So that was our half double crochet, and now we're just going to half double crochet in each chain across. So by the end of row 1, we should have 15 stitches, and our turning chains do not count. So I can see right here, we just worked this half double crochet here, and I can feel that chain that we worked into. So now I'm going to use my finger, and I'm going to move into the next chain. That's where I'm going to place my next half double crochet. Just like that. So it's really just a matter of relying on feeling the stitches, feeling the yarn as it moves on your hook. It's going to be very difficult to see what's going on, but that's why I chose a very simple stitch pattern for this, because it's able to work up that Sherpa look, but we're not going to be hopefully getting too confused with the actual stitches themselves. So we just continue working along until the end of the 1st row. Okay, so we have 1 chain left to work into, and I can tell that because here's where I made my slip knot, and here's my yarn tail, and we have 1 little bit sticking out here that I can feel. So I'm going to work my last half double crochet. So now we just finished row 1. Now to check the number of stitches, I'll show you how I like to count. I basically like to feel in between like this to count. So remember, we worked into the 3rd chain. So this is technically like our turning chain, and this does not count as a stitch. So we're going to start by counting with this one. This is our 1st stitch. So we have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15 stitches. So that's perfect. We have 15 stitches at the end of row 1. So now we're going to chain 2 and turn. Okay. So now for row 2, we're going to half double crochet into each stitch across. So we're going to half double crochet into this 1st stitch here. I can feel it with my finger. Our turning chain does not count as a stitch. So I'm just going to yarn over, find that stitch again, insert my hook, yarn over, pull up a loop, yarn over, pull through all 3 stitches. So now I can feel the stitch here. We're going to work into this next stitch here. Half double crochet. Let's find the next one. And this really goes pretty fast once you get the hang of it. You'll get used to kind of seeing and feeling where you're working now and then where the next stitch is. So I feel like it's a bit of a learning curve at first, but it's once you get the hang of it, it goes pretty quickly. So I'm just going to continue 1 half double crochet in each stitch till the end of row 2. We will have 15 stitches. All right, so we have 1 stitch left in row 2. And then we're going to chain 2 and turn. And then we're just going to repeat row 2 for a total of 28 rows. So 1 half double crochet in each stitch across for 28 rows total. So by the end of row 28, this panel should measure 11 inches wide by 23 inches long. So I'm going to continue working on this until the end of row 28, and then I will come back and we will assemble our pumpkin. All right, so I just finished row 28 of the panel, and this is what it's looking like. It's just a really long rectangle, and it should measure 11 inches wide by 23 inches long. And I don't have that much yarn left in this skein. Like I said at the beginning of the video, you'll use almost the entire thing. This is about how much I have left. So now we're just going to set this off to the side until we're ready to assemble. So now we're going to get our other yarn and we're going to work on the pumpkin stem. So we're going to start with a magic circle. So I like to wrap my yarn around my index finger 3 times, place my hook under all 3 strands, and pull the 3rd strand under the other 2. Then we're going to chain 1. Now we're going to place 4 single crochet into the circle. Oops. So that was 1. 2. 3 and 4. So now we have 4 single crochets, and we're going to pull the circle closed. Okay, now I'm going to slip stitch into the first stitch of our round. So it might be helpful to use a stitch marker for this part, but basically right here, that's our first stitch. Going to insert my hook into that stitch. All right, so we're going to slip stitch that first stitch of the round, yarn over, pull up a loop, and then pull through the loop on our hook. And then we're going to chain 1. For round 2, we're going to do 1 single crochet into each stitch around. So we'll have 4 single crochets at the end of round 2. We're not increasing. So we're going to work into this first stitch here. 1 single crochet. The next one. Third stitch. And the 4th stitch. So here we can see this was our first stitch. You can count backwards too. You could go 1, 2, 3, 4. This was our first stitch. This was our slip stitch from round 1. So we're not going to work into that. We're going to skip over that, and we're going to slip stitch into our first stitch. And there you go. So this right here is basically forming the kind of cap of the pumpkin stem, or the tip of it. So what we're going to do next is I'm going to set this off to the side, and I'm going to get my paper towel. So we have our paper towel here, and what I'm going to do is I'm just going to start from the bottom here. I'm going to fold it and just start rolling it up like this. You want it to be kind of maybe 1 inch folds, because this is going to form our pumpkin stem. So just do that all the way until the end, and then you should have something that looks like this. And then what we're going to do is we're going to just pinch the top here, and that is going to be the tip of our stem that we cover with this little cap here. So next, I'm just going to check and make sure that the stem will fit in okay. And that is looking good to me. So now what I like to do is, before I fasten off, we need our yarn, we need enough yarn to wrap around the rest of this paper towel. So what I like to do is I'm just going to remove my hook, and I'm just going to eyeball how much yarn I'm going to need before I actually fasten off. So for this stem, we're just going to get our yarn and start wrapping it around. And I like to start up here so that the rest of the stem looks pretty consistent. The point of this cap here is just to cover the paper towel on the top. So you might want to wrap this part a little bit more tightly so that it ends up being flush with the rest of the paper towel. And then just continue to wrap it around until the entire paper towel is covered. You can double wrap it if you want. Just wrap it as many times until you feel happy with that. Depending on how well you kind of tucked in this part, You can either choose to unravel this and go back and fasten off and then just kind of tuck these tails in, or you can just choose to move forward with what we have here. I also want to show you how to make the stem a little bit shorter if you're maybe making a smaller pumpkin or if you just want it to be shorter. So I'm just going to start by unwrapping a bit of the yarn. And let's just say I want my stem to be about that long. Now what I'm going to do is just get some sharp scissors and just cut that paper towel just like that. So now we have our shorter stem, and then I'm just going to secure this yarn. So I stick my hook under a few strands of yarn and then pull this tail up, pull up a loop with it, and then I'm going to yarn over and pull the rest of the tail through that loop just to fasten off. So that leaves us with our stem and a nice long tail to sew the stem on. So make sure your tail is about 24 inches long, or just long enough that you'll be able to secure the stem onto the pumpkin. So now what we're going to do is get our pumpkin panel, and we're going to fold it in half, just like this. And then we're going to slip stitch across to join these two edges. So to do that, we're going to insert our hook into this first stitch here, and then insert it into the first stitch of the other edge, yarn over, pull up a loop, and pull that loop through the loop that's on our hook. And we're just going to continue doing this across until we've reached the other end. Like I said earlier, you just have to feel for those stitches, and this yarn is really pretty forgiving, so if you do make a mistake or you don't go in the exact right stitch, you can't really tell. Even if your edges are not completely perfectly even, we're going to be cinching up both of these edges for the pumpkin pillow, so don't worry too much if if you make a small mistake here or there. It should turn out pretty well. So I'm just going to continue slip stitching to join until the end, and then I will come back. Right, so I just finished slip stitching, so now we have basically a large cylinder, and I'm going to just yarn over and pull the rest of my yarn tail through the loop to fasten off. And you shouldn't have too much left of your skein of yarn. This is about all that I have, and we are going to use this to cinch up the pumpkin. Depending on the type of yarn you're using, if it's super bulky, you may want to use your yarn that you used for the stem to do this part, but I didn't have any problem cinching it with this Sherpa yarn, so that's what I'm going to show for this video. But if you do want to use a lighter weight yarn for this step, feel free. So now I'm just going to thread the yarn onto my yarn needle. So with the yarn on my needle, I'm going to turn our panel this way, and then we're just going to weave the yarn along the outer edge of this opening, and just pull it through as you go, just at even increments. Doesn't have to be perfect. And we're just going to do this all the way around until we've gotten back to where we started. So now we made it all the way around, and I'm just going to pull on the yarn tail to cinch it closed. Just be gentle, don't pull it too hard or it might kind of snap. And then we're just going to pull that closed. And this is what our pumpkin will look like now. It kind of looks like a giant beanie. And then I'm just going to weave the yarn tail from one end to another just a few times to secure it. We can do a slip knot now. So don't pull it all the way through. We're going to leave a loop here, crisscross it so that there is a loop here, and then stick our needle through this loop, and then just pull tight, and we have our slip knot nice and tight. So now we're going to just feed the yarn tail back through the hole that we just cinched up and into the center of the pumpkin, just like this. All right, now we're ready to stuff our pumpkin. So I'm going to get the stuffing and just start putting it in evenly. I like to make sure that the yarn tail is still in the middle here. So I like to put stuffing on both sides of it like this. And then when you're happy with the amount of stuffing, I like to just check that I can easily close this up here. And then we're just going to do the same thing on the top where we weave our yarn tail around to cinch the top closed. So just all the way around. All right, so I just finished weaving the yarn tail all the way around, and now just pull it closed just like this. If you want to add any more stuffing, now is the time to do it, but otherwise just going to pull this tight and then secure it like we did on the other end. All right, now we're going to get our other yarn, and we're going to cut a piece that can wrap around the pumpkin 4 times. 3, 4. So I'm just going to wrap around 4 times and then cut that piece. And then undo the wrapping. This is still my yarn tail from earlier. I'm just going to leave that there until I'm officially ready to fasten everything off. But now I'm just going to weave this tail in somewhere here at the bottom and secure it. So I'm just going to tie a double knot here. And then on our other end, we are going to weave this end through a yarn needle. All right, so we have this end in our yarn needle, and what we're going to do is pull this strand across to the top of our pumpkin, and we're going to just get our yarn needle and stick it through that first hole that we cinched at the beginning. And we're going to push the pumpkin like this so that we can grab the needle on the other side, just like this. And then we're going to pull that nice and tight. So here's our yarn. Pull it tight. This is forming those indents for the pumpkin. Then we're going to repeat that on the opposite side. And just push that yarn needle through the center and pull it through. Make sure that they're opposites and then pull tight. And then we're going to repeat that as many times as you want. I do it 8 times. So I'm going to just kind of go at a diagonal here and here and here, and then repeat that on the opposite sides as well. So just do as many as you want to give your pumpkin those indents. So now I have threaded the yarn tail onto a yarn needle, and I'm going to secure the stem to my pumpkin. So I'm just going to find that center where we cinched the pumpkin earlier, and I'm going to place the stem right in the center, just like this. And now, once I'm kind of happy with that placement, I'm going to weave the yarn tail through the top of the pumpkin like this. And pull that tight. And then what I'm going to do is stick my yarn needle down through 1 or 2 strands of this stem. So we're just attaching it at another point of the stem, and then we're going to attach it at another point of the pillow. And we're just going to continue doing this around until our stem is nice and secure. So I'd say, if in doubt, just continue connecting the stem to the pillow at different points and make sure that it's secured nice and tightly. So I'm just going to continue securing the stem, then I'll come back. So now I've secured my stem, so I'm just going to fasten off my yarn with a slip knot here, going as close as possible to where the last one came out, just so that the yarn doesn't show too much. So there we go, we have our slip knot, and then you can either snip your yarn off here, or I like to weave this back through the center and out the bottom. And then I still have my yarn tails from earlier when I was assembling. So I like to just tie all of these together to really make sure that everything is secure. So I'm just going to do that now. And then once these are secure, we just snip off the ends and tuck any of them in. And then we have a lovely Sherpa pumpkin pillow. So we're all done. Now we have our Sherpa pumpkin pillow. I hope you enjoyed this tutorial. You can purchase the full written pattern on my Etsy shop, and I'll link that in the description box. And if you did like this video, please give it a thumbs up and subscribe to my channel for more tutorials. Thank you.